Morning.
Morning, how are you?
I saw one sign, I saw on TV. I kind of had a laugh about it because it was a take.
Morning.
Instead of saying make America great, it's make America good. I like that.
I thought for good.
And they said, and because he never would have, but they talked to them and said, oh, if you were on legal, you'd be president. He lives on that stuff. But they know about the slow down. My feeling is that real. That's insinuating that they don't think America's a great nation. Well, it's not a great nation because they're not. They're not there, which is.
Oh, okay.
Cousins.
Yeah, she's
Yeah. Yes. It's just the two of us. We can go around this side. It doesn't matter.
No, but there's, these things are supposed to be shown on TV, so the backdrop.
Just need to have it.
Yeah, thank you for remembering.
Yes.
So, we're now deploying the plans.
I don't come early and things don't get done.
That's right.
Jeez.
You gotta watch.
Actually was here.
You gotta keep an eye on me every minute. I don't know.
Where do you want this one, Raina? It's in bad shape.
Yes, you can take it. Wait, this is one of the Saturday projects we have.
Well, that hides it back there. So we got these little tiny cameras.
This is what we want.
Shall we start the slides?
No. It's not enough people.
Yeah. It is what it is.
It's raining. I wasn't even gonna come
Yeah.
at the last minute to change my mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and start the slides, the background slides. No. There we go. Oh, you're already quiet. There's an odd one in, there was an odd one in there that I do not know where it came from. Since you're quiet, I'll go ahead and start. Good morning. I'm Jim Newtown, your worship associate today. Welcome to the Unitarian, to those here and to those online who will be watching us. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Flint, a progressive LGBTQ plus affirming religious community. If you would like more information about our faith tradition or this congregation, please feel free to talk with one of our ministers today, who are not here today. We have a special speaker. Or via their contact information found at UU Flint, or any of our regular members, especially afterwards in the coffee hour. Visitors are especially invited to attend our coffee hour downstairs after the service. We will be doing a feedback right after the service for a few minutes. And any of us would be happy to tell you about our congregation. You may also sign up for our weekly newsletter, email newsletter, by visiting our website, scanning the QR code on the back of your order of service. Oh, that's not one. Or by completing the card in the seat backs. Okay. Announcements. I'm going to try to go through them fast because we have a lot. Next Saturday, October, in order, chronological order. Next Saturday, October 25th at 11 a.m., please join us in celebrating the life of Charles Thomas at a memorial service with a luncheon to follow. After the service and coffee time next Sunday, October 26th at noon, here in the sanctuary, please consider joining us for a workshop on the layperson's art of personal care. This session will focus on what to do and say to be helpful when our members are in need, whether you would like to be part of a lay care team or not. On Saturday, so the next Saturday, November 1st at 3 p.m., Mustard's Retreat will be back here for a Sing Out the Hope Community Sing. Tickets are on sale for $20 in the church office or see Terry Cross. On Friday, November 7th, 6 to 9 p.m. in Nelson Hall, White Elephant Halloween Bingo is back for the third time. We'll see. Might be the last one. Please note the date change. If you purchase tickets at Tales and Tunes and can't attend the new date, please see Reverend Lynn. Costumes are still welcome. It's the week after Halloween. You don't want to miss the fun. Is he keeping up? Yes. On Sunday, November 9th at 12 noon, we're having an open forum on our bylaws following our after-service refreshments. Please join us in our centuries-old tradition of open discussion in a church managed by the congregation's own members. This congregation's recent decision to hold membership in both the Northern American Unitarian Association, NAUA, and the Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA, requires that we look at Articles number 1 and 13 of our bylaws. Please see your e-update for additional information. We have an updated picture directory available online. I suppose it is in alphabetical order, so it could be a dictionary. You may contact the church office for a password to access the directory, which is available online, or to request a hard copy. If you are not in the directory and would like to be, or if you just want to add a picture or take a new one, please come up to the piano after the service. If you need to change something in your listing, please contact the church office. Instructions are also in your e-update. In the spirit of local engagement, a few of our congregants are continuing to demonstrate on Sunday afternoons at the Peace Triangle at the corner of Ballinger Highway and Miller Road, typically from 1 until 2 p.m. You are invited to join us. We come together to support our positive ideals to build the future we want to see. We rally to defend democracy and due process for all. Weather's starting to get iffy. Today, for example. It's not looking good for today, but we'll see. Feel free to check with either Terry Cross, myself, or Chris Monk for more information. We'll probably huddle together after the service today and decide whether we want to brave the weather or not. We're also looking for pictures of members participating in demonstrations, rallies, marches, and other social actions. The plan is to put them into a slideshow for a future service. If you have a picture you're willing to share, please email it to office@uuflint.org. We already have a couple of nice ones from yesterday. Pause, by the way, if you're curious. Many of us did attend the rally yesterday out by Indus Valley. The semi-official count is an unbelievable 10,250 people at the peak. And that's the estimate at the peak. There were people coming and going all afternoon, so it probably is low. Okay, time to light the chalice. We light this chalice to call into presence this hour our ancestors, whose love, labor, and commitment make it possible for us to be here now. Please join me in the reciting of our covenant. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. you. Very nice. Opening words. This is from Ancestors by Alice Walker. To acknowledge our ancestors means we are aware that we did not make ourselves, that the line stretches all the way back, perhaps to God or to gods. We remember them because it is an easy thing to forget our ancestors, that we are not the first to suffer, rebel, fight, love, and die. The grace with which we embrace life, in spite of the pain, the sorrows, is always a measure of what has been done, what has gone before.
Stand if you feel like it. For number 102, We the Heirs of Many Ages. We the heirs of many ages, with the wise to guide our ways, honor all the seers and sages, build our temples for their praise. But the good we claim to cherish, all that Christ and Buddha taught, unrepentant hearts let perish, spurning truth so dearly bought. Centuries of moral teaching, words of wisdom, ancient lore, all the prophet souls beseeching, leaves us heedless as before. Late in time may we, forsaking all our cruelty and scorn, see a new tomorrow breaking, and a kinder world be born.
In a minute, we will spend some quiet time, and if you have a joy or concern, you can light a candle at the front or the back of the sanctuary. I'm sorry, didn't get that right. We'll spend time in silent meditation, then after a few minutes, Dan will play some quiet music, and if you have a joy or concern, you can light a candle at the front or at the back of the sanctuary. If you would like to share that joy or concern with the rest of the community, please enter it in the book at the back of the sanctuary. It's over there. And it will be placed in our weekly e-update. We will end this period by quietly singing number 109, Meditation on Breathing While Seated. Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. We'll now have some special music, after which our speaker today, special speaker, Dr. Mark Reimer from MSU, will be speaking.
Hello, I know there's someone out there who can understand and who's feeling the same way as me. I'm 24 and I've got everything to live for, but I know now that it wasn't meant to be. 'Cause all has been lost and all has been won, and there's nothing left for us to save. But now I know that I don't want to be alone today. So if you find that you've been feeling just the same, call me now, it's alright. It's just the end of the world. You'll need a friend in the world, 'cause you can't hide. So call and I'll get right back. If your intentions are pure, seeking a friend for the end of the world. I've got a photograph, I'll send it off today. You can see that I am perfectly sane. Not for a lifetime or forever and a day, 'cause we know now that just won't be the case. So call me now, it's alright. It's just the end of the world. You'll need a friend in the world, 'cause you can't hide. So call and I'll get right back. If your intentions are pure, seeking a friend for the end of the world. No commitments and no confessions and no little secrets to keep. No houses with roses and no little children. It's just the end of the world and me. 'Cause all has been gone and all has been done, and there's nothing left for us to say. We could be together as they blow it all away, and we can share it every moment as it breaks. So call me now, it's alright. It's just the end of the world. You'll need a friend in the world, 'cause you can't hide. So call and I'll get right back. If your intentions are pure, seeking a friend for the end of the world. So call me now, it's alright. It's just the end of the world. You'll need a friend in the world, 'cause you can't hide. So call and I'll get right back. If your intentions are pure, seeking a friend for the end of the world.
So as I mentioned, our speaker today is Dr. Mark Reimer. See if I can remember half of this stuff. He's a neuroscientist and mathematician, a well-known humanist, and member of several national organizations, and has won several awards, was one I heard recently. So I'll let him go into greater detail, but he's a professor at Michigan State.
Thank you, Jim. I'll also mention that I'm on the board of trustees of the NAUA. Can you all hear me? Good. And also the head of the NAUA Academy. So some of you may want to attend some of our events virtually on second Tuesdays of every month. I hope to see you there. Well, next slide, please. So I think many of us 20 years ago, do you remember 20 or 30 years ago when after the Iron Curtain fell, it looked like the world was entering a time of peace? And we thought maybe liberal democracy was now the way of the future. Everyone in the world was going to become liberal Democrats. Remember those days? People were writing books like The End of History. Next slide, please. Well, history is back in a bad way. And we need to think about, well, why were we so naive? And is there a way to do better? And if we look at most of human history, we're confronted with kings, bloodshed, conquest, wars, slavery. It's not an inspiring record. So where do we look for something that is inspiring? Well, I'm going to take you on a brief journey to 3 places that I imagine most of you have never heard of, but were long-lasting, stable, just societies that human beings built, and human beings can build them again. So I want to start, next slide, please. I'm going to start, I want you to imagine, how many of you have been to Ukraine or Romania? Handful, okay. I want you to imagine not the Ukraine or Romania that you saw, but imagine that you are a Homo sapiens, a human being walking through Eastern Europe 6,000 years ago through the forests. There's no fields of golden grain like on the Ukrainian flag today. It's forest, woodland, hills. You're walking through a path in the forest and suddenly you come across a vision. So you've come from a village with a few wooden huts, a little bit, no metal, just stone tools. You come across a vision. Next slide, please. So we're talking about an area that's roughly split between modern Ukraine and Romania. Next slide, please. Culture. You come across a vision that is a city in the middle of the woods. And we know about them because we've been excavating them for about 150 years. And it was very popular among the Soviets because they thought that these were the first communists for reasons that I'll show you in a minute. It turned out that's not the case. So they abandoned it in the 50s and 60s, but recently the Europeans have been putting more effort into excavating that. Next slide, please. And this is what you see. You come across a hilltop and you look down onto another hilltop and a verdant valley full of crops that you are growing in your backyard garden, but you're seeing now grown on an immense scale that has never been seen before in the history of humanity. And they're all northern crops. They're not wheat. There's no wheat here yet. It's turnips and and root vegetables and greens. And they are making a living out of this. And this city that you're looking down on holds 40,000 people. So you come from a village of maybe 100. There's 40,000 people. And this village has been here for 500 years. This is this is a well-organized, thriving, stable society. And look at it. What strikes you as strange? What's unusual about this city? There's no walls. There's also, what's missing in the center? What do you see in every major ancient city? There's no temple, there's no palace, there's no central citadel. Something's very odd about this, if you go closer, if you look around at those houses, each neighborhood has its own distinctive colors, its own distinctive culture, but all the houses are the same size. Nobody lives in a palace. There's no rich people's houses, there's no slums. That picture of next slide, please. So this, I think, featured on the flyer for today. That's a ceremonial dinner plate. That was not dug out of a palace. That was dug out of a middle-class person's home. That's how ordinary people lived. There's very few weapons. This society was technically in the most advanced society in the world at that time. They were developing temperate agriculture on a large scale, and yet they managed it. And they lasted almost 2,000 years. So this was something they were doing right, and we need to understand what it was. Next slide, please. Well, all good things come to an end. And this society came to an unpleasant end, but not through their fault in this case. The expansion of the original Indo-Europeans, the languages we speak today. They had figured out how to tame and ride horses, and they were pretty aggressive. They conquered most of the known world at that time, most of South Central Western Asia at that time and into Europe. Not nice people. There are immediate cultural forebears. But the society in the Trypillia culture lasted for almost 2,000 years and I think sets a model for what we can do. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to take you in your time machine 2,000 years forward and to a very different place. Imagine how many of you have been to India or Pakistan? Okay, and it's very dry, at least in Western India and in Pakistan. 4,000 years ago, it was much more lush. There was a river, a very large river, that is now completely dried up, that was a major artery. Next slide, please. So this is the area we're talking about, the Indus Valley. It's an area roughly the size of Western Europe. So keep that in mind. So you know how hard it has been to bring all of the warring nations of Western Europe together and to work out a common currency, common political framework. Well, these folks did it 4,500 years ago. And they did it deliberately and intentionally. It wasn't by conquest. Next slide, please. How do we know about them? Well, they were lost to history for almost 4,000 years and rediscovered entirely by accident when the British started pushing railways through North India. They came across these old settlements. They were finding two-story buildings that were 4,000 years old, that had lasted that long. And they didn't know what to do with it. Nobody knew about it. It was not in mythology. It was not in history. So in the past 150 years, there's been a fair bit of archaeological effort. They had a script. We can't read it. It's the biggest unsolved mystery in paleolinguistics right now, is what does the script mean, if it means anything at all. They made beautiful artwork. The bottom right shows a seal. That is actually only about this big, and it's very finely engraved. Next slide, please. Their craft work was known throughout Southwest Asia. They were considered the masters of all kinds of craft work, and their beadwork was highly sought after by Mesopotamian kings. The Babylonians and the Persians and the people we know about, they couldn't get to the Indus Valley because they didn't have ocean-going ships. But guess who did? The Indus Valley people had ocean-going ships. And they not only went to the Middle East, they went all the way down the East African coast. So the Sumerians, whom gave rise to our civilization, they were pikers in comparison. They thought that the people of Mahola, as they called it, or Meluha, were the most advanced in the world, and they were. Next slide, please. So they had advanced irrigation. So it was already beginning to get drier because of climate change. They were building irrigation on a massive scale. They had indoor plumbing. This is, 2,000 years before Rome was even founded. They have public baths, and at the peak, there's about 3 million people living in this area. They have uniform weights and measures across the entire area. Remember, this is an area the size of Western Europe. How long has it taken us, Europeans to manage that? And there's roughly 1,000 other settlements that are known. So this is a very big culture and very, very consistent with water transport or on barges and very thriving economy. Next slide, please. Again, what's different about this society is that there's no weapons of war. Until the very end, there's no evidence of interpersonal violence. What's really striking for an archaeologist is that you don't see the things you see everywhere else. Many of you have been to Egypt or Mesopotamia. What do you see? You see giant sculptures of great kings. You see murals of, this is your pharaoh smiting your enemies for you. You see that kind of art glorifying warfare and conquest. There's none of that in the Indus Valley. And there's no temples. There's no obvious images of gods. The sculptures we have are of people dancing, of animals. We think they had a very animal-centric religion, but we don't know. We can't read what they wrote. There's certainly religious practice was an important part of holding the society together. Interestingly, the people we think were the priests or the leaders, or we're not quite sure what role they played, they did live near the citadel, near the top, but they lived more simply than most people. That is, the furnishings in their houses, their pots and pans, they're less ornate than the people around them. Quite a remarkable inversion of usual practice. Next slide, please. Again, multi-story houses, they're all the same size. This is an artist's reconstruction, but we think it's reasonably accurate. Indoor plumbing. Next slide, please. Okay, all good things come to an end. We don't quite know what happened here. We think there were changes in the stratification of society, partly brought along by new technology that kind of ended up changing the way people related to each other rather than having people change the technology. There's also, they brought back diseases. So they, as I said, they were taking their ships, down the coast of Africa and They brought back some diseases they didn't know how to deal with. There's also the big thing, which is the collapse of the Saraswati River. I mentioned there was a big river there that dried up, and that seems to have been one of the precipitating factors. So it's climate change of some sort. Some people thought for a while that they actually were exterminated or killed by the Aryan invasion, but that we think was much later. We think that's about 1600, not 400 years after the collapse of the Indus Valley. So it's probably not the Aryans in this case. Next slide, please. So for our final stop on this tour, I want to bring back to this continent, although quite a bit south of where we are, probably, 1,500 miles due south. How many of you have been to Mexico? Okay, most of us have been to Mexico. Probably you saw two kinds of things. You saw the Aztec ruins and you saw the Mayan ruins. Neither of those people were particularly ethically exemplary. I don't think any of us would hold the Aztecs up as examples of moral probity. Next slide, please. But we're going to be talking about several places in Mesoamerica. So it seems that a number of, next slide, please. It seems that a number of these city-states were originally republics, not necessarily democracies in modern sense, but where they were ruled by representatives chosen by the people rather than by kings. In most places that didn't last very long, but there's several evidences that people were gathering together voluntarily and producing substantial works of architecture completely by self-organization. And I'll talk mostly about one place. Next slide, please. So here's a map of the Aztec Empire, or Mexica Empire, at its peak. What do you notice? There's holes. That's highly desirable land. Why are there holes? Because they couldn't conquer those people, including the people, the Tlaxcala people, just 80 miles to the east of the Aztec capital. So I've practiced for months to say this, Tlaxcala. I still can't get it right, but it's still there, and you can visit some of the old sites of their cities. But they were a multi-ethnic polyglot society, formed of three major ethnic groups, including the major ethnic group was Nahua, which is the same group as the Aztecs. So they spoke the same language as the Aztecs, but they resisted their expansion. Basically, the Aztecs tried to invade every year, and they always were beaten back. This went on for more than a century. And I'll tell you about how that resolved. But these people believed in what they had so much that they were willing to fight and die for their republic. Next slide, please. So how were they distinctive? You'll probably beginning to see a theme, if I'm not boring you with repetition. Again, archaeology shows us that all of the houses were the same size, including the houses of the leaders. There's no palaces, there's no royal tombs. That's why this culture was largely ignored. In the early 20th century, how did you make your name as an archaeologist? You found a royal tomb. You brought back golden vessels. You displayed them in a museum. There's nothing like that here. There's just basic objects of everyday use. There's no fancy art glorifying kings or leaders. In fact, to become a leader, you couldn't be born a leader. You had to prove yourself. So you had to show that you were brave in the field of battle, with plenty of opportunity for that. You had to show that you were a wise leader, and you had to show that you could connect with people, you could listen to people. And that was quite a road to run in order to attain public office. We have no evidence of royal houses. There's no insignia. All of the insignia of office are insignia of the gods or of a more abstract nature. There's no seals of noble houses. Next slide, please. Again, if you look at the city plans, if you compare the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, with the Tlaxcala capital, what do you see? On the Aztec capital, everything converges on the center, the giant, palace and temple. In Tlaxcala, you can't even find those. And guess where the Senate, the people's representatives met? They didn't meet in the center of the city, they met outside. So nobody could claim that piece of land. It was nobody's land. It was hard for people, for any private individual to exert influence. And again, these are things that we just found out in the last 20 years. This was ignored for a long time. Next slide, please. Okay, how did they come to an end? Well, as you know, the Spanish invaded in 1519. They arrived in Veracruz. Cortez marched up. Cortez was aiming for Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, because that's where all the money was, right? So who was in the way? Tlaxcala was in the way. So they fought the Spaniards to a standstill. Spaniards had cannons, horses, armor, guns. The Tlaxcala people fought them to a standstill while holding off the Aztecs on the other side. Finally, both sides decided this is going nowhere. We both have a common enemy, which is the Aztecs. So why don't we join forces? So the Tlaxcala people sent an envoy to Cortez, and Cortez, who had lost half of his force by that time, decided, yeah, this is probably a better deal. And it was actually the Tlaxcala people who were the major part of Cortez, under Cortez's command, who actually finally laid siege to and captured Tenochtitlan. So, yeah, you never heard this, right? This is part of the history that we don't talk about. But they were a very well organized society, but they were a republic in the classical Roman sense. Next slide, please. By the way, the Spanish did honor their treaty. So they had a separate treaty with the Tlaxcala people, and they did honor it for at least a generation. And we actually have written records from the Tlaxcala people themselves that have just been recently rediscovered, as well as the archaeology. So what does this all mean? Next slide, please. So first you might ask, is this all? So you've taken us on a tour of 3 places in time. Are there other examples? Are these the only people that ever made it work? And no, there's plenty of other good examples. I could have equally talked about the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and how they resolved their constant intertribal warfare sometime, we think, in the 12th century, and established the Great Law of Peace. That's worth studying if you've never looked into it. As I mentioned, there's several other early sites in Mesoamerica that seem to have had a republican or egalitarian constitution. Again, there's no writing. Strangely enough, if you go to Mexico City and you go out to the Temple of the Sun and the Temple of the Moon, has anyone done that? So those are the great tourist attractions of the pre-Aztec people. Very, obviously places where human sacrifices were carried out. What they may or may not tell you is that those places were blocked off sometime in the 2nd century. And again, archaeological evidence suggests that after the temples and the palaces were shut down, that the ordinary people were living very well. That, you know, we see plenty of evidence of, you know, large-scale apartments with, you know, with lots of families living in them, but that the turkey bones and other things attest to a very, very healthy diet. That's something you don't find in most empires, where the majority of people are living on scraps. So some people are suggesting that there was a kind of people's republic. Who knows? We don't have any writing. There's also evidence in several early sites in Syria, and some of you study Buddhism, I think. A few of you. You may have noticed that the Pali Canon has a very different flavor from most scriptures. It's kind of like deliberations, almost like the minutes of a council meeting. Well, where did it come from? It came from these Himalayan foothill kingdoms. Turns out that they were also largely republics. So there was a king, of course, who was a figurehead, but a lot of the decisions were made by councils composed of representatives from each family or tribe. So they had an early form of deliberation and a lot of practice debating things. So that was next slide, please. So what can we learn from these societies as a whole? So they all had a strong egalitarian ethic. There's no evidence of poverty or slums. Somehow they managed to restrain individuals from amassing wealth and power. So again, we don't see anybody accumulating lots of gold or silver, or we don't see any evidence of people being powerful kings dominating others. We don't really know how they did this, but in all these societies, there's a very strong religious element that seems to encourage loyalty to the group. We can't read a lot of the writing, so we don't quite know exactly what it is. But people are looking into that, trying to investigate that now. So, but they weren't anarchist communes. They weren't, hippies in the woods. They were organized societies. They were, in all cases, they were the most technically advanced societies of their day. They were trying things that other societies were trying to copy or wishing they could do. So it's not the case that an egalitarian society necessarily suppresses innovation and technical development. That's a trick that I think we need to understand. And it wasn't, completely, undifferentiated. People with talents were promoted. So it wasn't that everybody was exactly equal. It was the case that people who showed wisdom, who showed, ability, were promoted, but not to the point of being fabulously wealthy. So that's what I'd like to leave you with. It is possible to build a just society, but it's going to be hard. And I would encourage you to read more by David Graeber, whose quote started this service, that it's a hard thing, a difficult thing to build a just society. He's written a book recently that I would encourage you to read. What's it called? The Origin of Everything, The Beginning of Everything, which I'd encourage you to read. Talks about several of these societies. And next slide, please. And that's it. So I'm happy to take questions or dissents and talk about how we might achieve those things. Yes?
Were any of these...
Hold on. We're going to reorganize. Let's go ahead and finish the service, and then we'll do the talk back.
Sure.
So, Jim, hold your questions. We will hear them in a minute.
They'll give them a minute to organize the remote microphones too. This is our time for generosity. It is the time when we collect an offering for the work we do. So I invite you to support us by giving of your time, talent, and treasure. Gifts of all kinds are gratefully accepted and appreciated. Thank you. We invite you to join us as we take the collection by placing your offering in the basket at the back of the church. as you leave or by an online gift at uuflint.org. And thank you for every gift you offer. Some closing words by Václav Havel. Our respect for other people or other nations and for other cultures can only grow from a humble respect for the cosmic order and from an awareness that we are a part of it, that we share in it, and that nothing of what we do is lost, but rather becomes part of the eternal memory of being where it is judged. Join me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So we haven't done this in a while, so we're a little off base, but if anybody would like to go ahead and go downstairs for coffee and refreshments and conversation, that's fine. But we're going to have an opportunity for 10 or 15 minutes for questions from our speaker, and we have some remote microphones.
Now, Mark, you can hold a mic, you can stand at the pulpit, whichever you like.
Okay, I'll
Hi.
talk with reply right now.
So, comments. We're here in this time on this planet with climate change. Colorado River is drying up in the United States. Mm-hmm. We have lots of fighting. We have lots of hostility in our own unique thing. And we have so many guns, it's astounding. So, you know, there's some obvious conclusions that might benefit us at this point in time, which is collaboration and some appropriate weapons control and so on and so forth. So, to me, that's obvious. I have a question for you. Do you see examples like the Mondragon Corporation, which started in the 50s and still is going pretty strong, and as a model of organization of businesses and a community as an example of what might happen? Are there other examples like that in the US that you could think of, or in Europe other than the Mondragon Group in Spain?
Yeah, I think you were mentioning the Mondragon Group, which is, I believe, in the Basque Country and in Spain, which is a sort of worker-organized manufacturing collective. I don't know of anything on the same scale. Some other people may. There is a there was a British company that for a long time operated on similar ways, but I think it finally got sold to a, so I'm not sure if I know of anything comparable on the large scale in North America. I think it's, it takes some doing to make such a thing work.
Oh,
Yes.
Mark, just so you're aware, we've left the live streaming on.
Okay, thanks.
There was no mention of if these were matriarchal or patriarchal societies. It seems like women would have a big thing to do with this.
Yeah, in the longer talk, I talk about those issues, but briefly, as far as we can tell, the Tripilia culture, most of the religious statuettes are female. Now they're largely, celebrating fertility, but they do seem to indicate that women played a significant role. The Haudenosaunee, of course, have a nice division so that the longer scale, longer term decisions and the land are determined by the women, and the sort of immediate executive decisions are made by the men. The Indus Valley civilization, we have both sculptures of both men and women. The clothing that men and women wore was similar enough, I mean, of course, somewhat necessarily modified, but similar enough that we think that men and women had roughly equal status. I believe that Tlaxcala was a more patriarchal society.
Which one?
Tlaxcala, the last one I talked about. I believe so, but I'm not real familiar with it.
Were they more warlike or anything?
Well, they were
different?
necessarily more warlike because they got invaded every year.
Oh, that's right, yeah, those guys. I can't remember the long names.
Yeah.
And also, these people were hunter-gatherers more than agricultural.
No, these are all agricultural
Oh.
people. So the Ukrainian example, the Tripilia culture, these were the first large-scale agriculturalists in Europe.
Ah.
He'll be downstairs also. Hello.
Hi.
Enjoyed your presentation. I have two questions. Did you have any of this information, or might it be in the book that was mentioned on Peru?
I've looked into, I do not know of any really compelling examples in Peru.
They have the ruins and everything too.
Yeah, and I don't think that David Graeber's book, The Dawn of Everything, that was the title I was struggling for. I don't think he mentions Peru either, so I can't really speak to Peru.
I lived there for a year, so there a lot of what was presented here reminded me of a lot that was in Peru. And when you mentioned even the neighborhoods, every neighborhood in Peru you could take a mini bus to, and you wouldn't have to live outside the neighborhood. And they had parking rides way before we had them here, because I was in the early 70s. Of course, we had an earthquake and a coup and martial law, but that was okay. And then the second question I had, just real quickly, is when you showed the the ruins up there, the first thing that came to my mind is, how did they empty them so quick? And was there like the last person close the, turn out the lights, or how did they get so many people out and have it empty? It seems like one, at one time.
I'm not quite sure which, are you talking about the ruins of the Indus Valley societies, or the, which ruins are you talking?
Either one of them, they're both empty. They had to, it took some time to empty them with all the wars and everything, but now they're just flat out empty, and then they got covered up by dirt. I mean, what was the last person to leave? I mean, or was there the whole thing?
I don't think we have any notes from the last person to leave.
That's what I'm thinking of, because they would have already fought all their wars, and was the whole place full of dead people, or did they all?
So there's certainly, at the collapse of the Indus Valley, so we're seeing interpersonal violence for about 50 years, the last 50 years of it, as far as we can date any of those. No. Yeah, so no written records. Now with Tlaxcala, of course, the place keeps being lived in, and it's still inhabited today. But the Ukrainian, the Tripilia culture sites are not inhabited, and we guess that they mostly got carried off by the Yamnaya people who were not so interested in what they had built. Probably, which is what happened to the Maya people after the Mayan cities collapsed. The Mayan people didn't die; they just went to smaller scale settlements.
God, you can't fly 19 people of the deceased,
Okay, well, thank you, and let's move it down to stairs, because.
Yeah, let's go to coffee hour. The most important part of the service, let's go do coffee hour.
Yeah.
They'll talk to you there too, as you know.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, yeah. Be watching you. See about that, but. You did, yeah. Just this. Our society is what happened.